What's up guys? Today we're doing something a little different. We're checking out what I think is the best value table saw for any general woodworking, but also for building subwoofer boxes. Now this table saw has a lot of features that other ones don't, especially not in this price range, and I'll go over those with you. But I did a lot of shopping around, and this model, Metabo, which is basically the same as Hitachi, it's the HPT C10RJS. So this is a feature-packed saw, really good price, and it's super high quality. So I'm going to go through all the features and kind of do a runaround for you on it. Like I said, I did a lot of research, and this to me is the best bang for your buck for a table saw, for not only for building like speaker boxes, subwoofer boxes, but cutting sheets of plywood, because it has one of the largest table capacities in its class. So now I picked this up for $349 at Lowe's. Regular it's $399, but it used to be $599. So I think maybe because when Hitachi switched the name to Metabo, they kind of lowered the prices to get people kind of back into, you know, buying the new products with the new name. But let's go ahead and walk around on it, and I'll show you some of the features. First off, it comes 95% assembled. A lot of the other saws, you have to do a lot of assembly. This one comes with the whole lower portion already assembled. So all you're doing is putting these two bolts in here on each side to attach this bar, and underneath you can't see it from the front, but there's just 4 bolts holding the main unit onto the stand. So that's 6 bolts total. And then on this side you have this little leg that you have to attach with these 2 bolts. Now that's it. The rest of it comes fully assembled, so it was super easy. If you looked at the other videos with like the cobalt and the rigids and stuff, there's a lot more parts, and it actually takes usually about an hour to, you know, to fit all the pieces together. The other thing I like about this is not just cheap, super thin tube steel. This is super heavy duty. I'm not sure what gauge it is, but it's really thick. The welds are thick. I mean, it's a solid piece of equipment. And the plate steel they use, again, is a higher, thicker gauge. So this stand is not going anywhere. It's super rigid, and the same goes for the steel that they used for the table saw itself. It's thicker walled. It's not just that super thin tubing. And the legs are really strong. This thing just feels really planted. And one of the reasons why that's good is because, you know, a lot of times you're going to want to cut a sheet of plywood, if not a full sheet. Maybe have Home Depot or Lowe's rip it in half, but you're still going to be trying to put a big sheet of plywood on here, which is heavy. You don't want the saw falling over. And see how the legs go out at an angle too? It's already wider than the other saws, but the angle keeps this thing totally planted. Okay, so, and then another feature is this actually has the gear driven table, which this saw is very similar. Some would say it's a copy of the DeWalt that's like $600, but you have a lever under here that unlocks the table. Now it's gear driven, and there's gears on both sides, not just one. So it's not pulling on one side. It's super smooth, and it's all metal gears. So this thing, it's, you know, feels really nice, not cheap at all. And the other thing I like is the full length scale. You don't have to use 2 scales and do the math. You can see right there, this has a 35-inch table length, which, let me put that in the picture. I mean, that gives you a lot to work with, being able to, you know, cut 35 inches on the table. So you adjust it, and then you lock it, and that locks the table in. So there's 2 scales here. One scale basically, obviously you see the one that says 35 inches. That's for if you're going to be cutting a longer piece of wood and you have the guard extended. So see this section right here? That would be if you're cutting shorter pieces of wood. I don't have two hands, but these you just release, and this whole guard can change position closer, and then you would use this scale, the smaller scale. But lever, gear driven, super smooth, metal gears. Also, this is nice. Obviously, like if you were going to cut a sheet of plywood long, you flip this up, and now that'll hold your plywood that you're ripping. So that's another feature that's nice, and when you want it out of the way, you just flip it over. So this is removable. You just twist these a little bit and again rotate it up and it'll come off. You have to do both sides the same. So you got to have two hands to do it. There's a rear extension, which is really nice. It's got little lock bolts, so if you want to tighten them down, but you pull this out and it gives you about an extra 10 inches or so, which is super nice to just be, keep the wood more stable when you're cutting it through the cut. All these are adjustable, so how you would adjust if your measurements were off, mine were spot on. These will actually move, these are what attach the guard. So if something's off or not square, you can just simply loosen one of these on each side and line up the guard, but mine was spot on out of the box. So back here, you got your vacuum port, and it's a metal housing, which I like, and you got your miter storage right there, so you can see the miter gauge. And on this side, you got your storage for your anti-kickback pawls and your blade guard. So all that stores underneath. And the other thing that's nice is this has a little trap door with a wing nut, so you can get in there and clean inside if there's any kind of debris stuck in there, which is really nice having that little trap door to be open, to get to that. So let's continue on. So the table's aluminum and it feels really thick. A lot of the other ones almost felt plastic. And also the blade cover right here is metal. So, and it's real nice. All you do is unlock it and it lifts right out. And it is metal. And there's a hardened steel insert at the very end. And you'll see there's 4 little Allens, which you can use these to level it with the table. So if it happens to be unlevel, you can use those 4 little screws to level it. Another great feature of this saw, and everything is just really thick, nothing feels cheap, but your riving knife, instead of having a nut and a bolt and having to get a wrench down there, it has a quick connect lever, and it's also notched. So there's 3 positions for the riving knife, and you can feel it click into place, and then you just turn the lever and lock it in, so you don't have to have a wrench to adjust that or to move it. So that's really nice. Just a really well built saw. And so this is again your 2 gauges. The far gauge is for when you have the guard out. The inner gauge is for when you have the guard in the close position. Mine was spot on. I already checked it from the factory. I didn't have to do anything, but this is also adjustable if you want to adjust it here and not with the guard screws. So let's move on to the power switch. A lot of guys complain about the cheap switches that these saws have. This thing has a super robust switch. So it's got a little cover if you don't, if you don't want anybody to turn it on. So you turn it on, and then it has the big paddle switch off. And this is like nylon. It's not a cheap plastic. This is really durable, thick, heavy-duty plastic. So I don't see this switch ever going bad. It's not rinky-dink or cheap like a lot of the other ones. Again, you can see the metal gears are used throughout this saw, so there's no plastic gears on here. Even the gear for the blade bevel is metal. And I really like this. It's super smooth. A lot of the other ones felt cheap, but you undo that lever, and then you turn this big knob, and then that adjusts your bevel. And then you lock the lever into place. Now this doesn't lock. This just cranks up your saw height. And again, that's really smooth, really nice. And I'm going to go ahead and grab my gauge too. I did not have to adjust anything on this saw. So that was really nice that it was not all out of whack when I got it. So let me go ahead and grab, and I will show you guys how accurate this bevel gauge is. Okay, so we got the digital gauge hooked up, and we're all the way over to the left 0 position. And like I said, I double checked everything on this table saw, but I didn't have to move anything. It came perfectly adjusted. So let's go ahead and go to 25 degrees, and you'll see it's 25.1. So it's really nice having this scale pretty active, pretty accurate. 40 degrees, and then we'll go all the way over to where it stops, and you can feel it stop, and the stops are adjustable. If you see those screws on the end, if you do have to adjust it, you can just adjust those screws on each end. There's the other one back there. But see, here's 45 degrees, and it's 45.4. So it's already set, with super acceptable limits, so that's really nice. Because, I've seen some horror stories where these things are so far off that you can't adjust them. So that's a pretty good runaround of it. A couple last things. This thing has a motor brake, which is really nice. Only the higher end saws have it. So watch, we'll go ahead and kick it on here, and you'll see how fast the blade stops. A lot of the cheaper saws don't, and the blade will run for 7-8 seconds after. When you're using a saw, if you want to shut that blade off, you want to stop it as soon as possible. So we'll go ahead and kick it on. Now I'm going to shut it off. You see how fast that stopped? It literally takes about a second. So that's a super nice feature. So it stops super fast, and I don't know if you heard, but it does have soft start also. So just a great saw, a lot of great features, cord storage. The miter is keyed, which is nice. So you can't just set it in from the top. You have to go in from the side, and usually that makes them a little bit tighter. There's always a little play on this, but this one is not that sloppy compared to all the other ones I've seen and I've had. And the other thing that's nice about this has a detent at 90, so when you want to square it up, it has a little ball and socket. It snaps into place, so you always know when you're at 90. And it also has one every 15 degrees. So if you're just making standard degree angles, it's got detents for each one of those. So that's super nice. Blade guard, typical blade guard. I will say this one again, the plastic is thicker. It's heavier duty than a lot of the other cheap rinky-dink ones. So this shouldn't break easily like a lot of the other ones do. And I'm doing this one-handed, so, but it just pops on there and snaps on real easy. There's different slots for the anti-kickback pawls, and then different slots that the guard goes onto. So let me try to get these out of here. I think I need 2 hands. Give me 1 second. Okay, so there we have the guard put on. Sorry I couldn't do that with 1 hand. And the anti-kickback pawls. And they just snap off really easy. You slide that lever. And this one has a pull lever. And they store underneath. And again, you have your release for your table. Gear driven, super smooth. Set it to 35 inches, and that is 35 inches. So, hope this helped you guys. If you guys are looking for a table saw to make subwoofer boxes, or any just general carpentry work, for $350 right now, and even $399, this table saw is a steal. There's nothing else that's like heavier duty, has all the features for this price range, hands down. Super nice saw. So I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Let me know if you have any comments, and until next time.